This morning when we came into the sanctuary, we noticed that things are different in this space than they were just when we were here last week. Garlands have been strung around and wreaths put up. There is a Mosiman tree with decorations on it as we enter into the sanctuary. The purple paraments are up, and even the candles have special decorations on them, all to let us know that another season in the church year, the season of Advent, has begun. And on our communion table, of course, an Advent wreath. 4 candles for hope, peace, faith, and love. And this morning, one of those candles is lit. Now, in the lighting in this sanctuary, one candle doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. But the amount of light that a single candle provides really depends on how much darkness there is, doesn't it? Ashley has been feeling a sense of the darkness in this part of her life. She graduated from university in May, but the graduation ceremony was virtual. Rather than walking down the aisle and being handed a diploma by the president of the university, she received her diploma from the UPS driver. Sign here, please. She was fortunate that in March, before everything shut down, she had done some job interviews and she had been offered a position with a large accounting firm in Chicago. And that was thrilling. Her first real job, a big corporation, a move to the city of Chicago. It was exciting, it was romantic. There was just a little hint of being scared to death about the whole thing. But then everything changed. She did move back home, her parents' house. Her company had told her that she could work anywhere where she could get a computer connection. She didn't have to move to Chicago, so she moved home, redecorated her teenage bedroom to make it look like a professional office, still with a hint of pink here and there. But she really understands that she's one of the lucky ones. She had a job to go to, even if she is working remotely. Some of her friends who graduated have also moved back home, but they haven't needed to redecorate that teenage bedroom. And they're finding themselves working at places that they used to work on summers, Lowe's and Starbucks and such like. And when Ashley hangs out, it's with her parents. It's not the beginning of a young professional career that she had imagined, and she doesn't see how it's going to change anytime soon. And the darkness starts to close in on her. Sam and Emily had a wonderful Thanksgiving, but not the one they would have planned. It was just the two of them this year. The children had insisted that they stay home, the children stay home, and that the parents stay safe. So they had Zoomed with 2 of their grandchildren, and they FaceTimed with another. Their son, Clark, had a standard for them that when he wanted to talk to them, he would call them. They were never to call him. They hadn't heard from him for 4 months, and they were hoping that maybe on Thanksgiving, that would be the time. Now they're hoping that maybe it'll be at Christmas time. Well, they agreed also, Sam and Emily, that fixing Thanksgiving dinner, for just the 2 of them was a little bit of overkill. So to make it easy, they just decided they'd order in. They'd never done that for Thanksgiving before. Never. And the meal arrived on time, and it was delicious. And after the meal, Emily said, "Well, that was certainly easy, wasn't it?" And Sam said, "And we're not going to be standing in the kitchen cleaning up dishes for half the night either." After they had their meal, they kind of fell into a normal routine. Emily went to the computer and played bridge. Sam sat in his easy chair with a book on the Second World War and fell asleep. It was a different kind of Thanksgiving, and to tell the truth, they would have preferred the 14 people and the chaos that brings. But they understand this is a different year. And they experience the darkness that comes not just because the sun's going down early, but because one of those essential family traditions this year got set aside. And I hope that most of us can connect in some way or another with those two vignettes. We have for 8 months now done things differently. When I get in my car, I've got 5 face masks dangling off the gear shift lever to remind me to put one on when I go into a store. There are hand sanitizer bottles everywhere in every business you go into to encourage you to make sure your hands are clean. There are a zillion different ways that we are reminded that this is not exactly a normal time and that we have to make adjustments for it, whether we're excited about it or not. Even here in the church, we've had to do away with things like passing of the peace, which just feels so essentially a part of the Christian faith, to offer the peace of Christ to one another. And now we don't do that. We don't sing hymns. We won't sing Christmas carols. Rather than encouraging you at the end of the worship service to stay here in the sanctuary and visit with one another, we're encouraging you to leave the sanctuary, leave the building, go and have these conversations with one another out on the church lawn. A single candle on the communion table does not provide a whole lot of light in this room, but it depends on how dark your darkness is, isn't it? You know, throughout this week, as I have been thinking about this sermon, I have been thinking about a hymn that is not a Christmas hymn, and yet so appropriate. Christ be our light. Longing for light, we wait in darkness. Longing for truth, we turn to you. Make us your own, one holy people, light for the world to see. Christ be our light. Shine in our hearts, shine through the darkness. Christ, be our light. Shine in your church, gathered today. Some years ago on a family vacation, we were in central Kentucky and visited Mammoth Cave National Park. Mammoth Cave is one of the largest cave systems in the world, and the main room in Mammoth Cave is called the Rotunda Room. Ancient river that no longer flows through there had hollowed out a dome in the rock in this huge central room that is just cavernous. It's just a huge room. And we went on what they called the lantern tour. So we carried about one every 4 people. Someone carried a lantern. Now, it wasn't an oil lamp lantern as those who first explored the cave would have carried, but nonetheless, it gave off kind of an unusual light in the room. And we got to one point in the rotunda room, this absolutely huge room, when the guide took up all of our lanterns and shut them all off. And there was complete, absolute darkness. I don't know of any time before or since I have been in a place that was as dark as that was, but I know I have an awfully hard time describing it. The best I can come up with is to tell you that you can put your hand with your palm on your nose and wiggle your fingers, and you cannot see them right there. It was eerie. And then the guide lights a single candle, and the entire cavernous room is illuminated. It is amazing how much light one candle is if it's that dark. So Jesus says to his disciples, beware. In those days the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from the heavens, and the powers in heaven will be shaken. Jesus is probably quoting from the prophet Amos, though images like that occur in several of the prophets. But one of the things that the prophets always point to is not the darkness, but that God is the hope of light. No matter how tragic the experience, no matter how bad you think it is, God can bring light into that darkness. The time at which Jesus was born was a time in which people were experiencing darkness in life. Their land was occupied by the Romans, an occupying army, not their own people, who were powerful and sometimes abusive. They were concerned because the people who should have been on their side, the religious leaders, seemed to want to make concessions to the Romans. And then there are those things that happen in all of our lives, times of plenty and want, joy and sorrow, illness and health. I don't know that it was the darkest time in human history when Jesus was born, but it was a moment that longed for there to be light. A single candle can be that light. Sam and Emily fired up the computer this morning as they sat down to live stream the worship service from Bethany Church, where they regularly attend. We're still in their jammies with a cup of coffee each and a little coffee cake. On the video feed, there was just Pastor Sarah, Ruth, the soprano soloist, and Kurt, who plays the piano. And Pastor Sarah went and lit the candle, one candle, on the Advent wreath and said, "May the light of Christ bring hope to you this day." And Sam reached out his hand and took hold of Emily's and gave it a little squeeze. Friday after Thanksgiving, Ashley and her mom started getting out the Christmas decorations, starting to put things up here and there. Her mom was digging down deep in one of those boxes of Christmas decorations, and she brought out an old Advent wreath, one that Ashley had made when she was 9 or 10 in a Sunday school class. And Ashley said, "Oh my gosh, Mom, I can't believe you've held on to that whole thing." And they both agreed that it was a little bit worse for the wear, but they also both agreed that this year they were going to put it in the middle of the kitchen table. And this morning, when they gathered around for breakfast, they lit one candle. And Ashley said, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light." It was just a single candle, just one. One candle doesn't provide a lot of light in a light room, but one candle is a lot of light in the darkness. Amen.